Welcome back everyone to Caelesti Lite. This is version 0.3.1 of the pack, and in today's update I've fixed a number of long-time bugs that have existed in both Caelesti Lite and Caelesti, and probably a number of your resource packs if you are a pack artist watching this as well. And I've also introduced some cool new features, ported some more things over from mainstream Caelesti, and given them the Caelesti Lite tweak that we wanted to see as well. So without further ado, first of all we have leaves. There's been a problem in, well, not even just my resource pack, a number of resource packs for quite a while now, where complex leaf models would have really bad shading. It does still happen occasionally. You can see it here. As you can see there, it's a bit dark on top of the leaves. As you can see though, this is now no longer a huge issue. This has been something that's been plaguing my packs for the longest time. Turns out, most of the problems with shading on complex models is actually introduced by random rotations. So when you're in a block states file, you can reference a model multiple times, but then put afterwards Y90, Y180, Y270, and it will rotate the block around 90 degrees each time. So basically, when you do that, it introduces a number of new problems to do with lighting and to do with collision, and there's been a lot of research into this recently. Someone who's in the PCO has been looking into it quite a lot, I believe, is OneLots. He's been trying to figure out why these things do happen, and basically the game is as broken as we thought, but we can actually deal with it. There are ways of managing it, and as you can see here, by simply removing the random rotations and adding rotations as an additional block model, we actually fix the problem entirely. So I think that's looking pretty good now. So no more weird shading on the sides of tree leaves. As you can see, I think it looks pretty nice. The worst thing you'll get is like that, for example. You see where that little tiny bit sticking out there is a bit darker, but for the most part it doesn't look that bad, and I think this is a huge improvement, so I'm really chuffed with that. Moving on from that, we have a new texture for snow. Now, I have never textured snow before, and I'm starting to realize that I think all of my textures in the end are going to end up looking very similar, because you can see here, this texture looks more like sand than snow, I guess. It's a bit of a weird one, but I do like it. I think it looks good. Given that it has virtually no contrast whatsoever, it doesn't really matter, and from a distance, you can't really make out what the shape of the texture is anyway, so it's basically fine. And as you can see here, I've also designed the side of the snowy grass as well. So for the longest time, snowy grass has been really inconsistent in my pack, because once there is snow on top of a grass block, it would revert back to the vanilla dirt texture on the side, which was really ugly, and another inconsistency, another thing that you just get as a result of using a pack that is in development. But I've done that now, so the side of snowy grass has now been textured. It has 8 variants, the same as regular grass, and I think it looks really nice. Again, we have a lot of variation and rotation, and also an interesting thing to note with this as well is that this model, this grass block model, doesn't actually have a top face. I should have actually done this a bit earlier, but we have a new texture for the debug stick, so there it is, hell yeah. If I get myself a grass block and make it snowy, as you can see here, there is actually no texture on the top of the grass block. In vanilla, there is still a texture on top of the grass block, it's just an untinted grass texture, like, so example, imagine the top texture like this, but grayscale. So what I've done is actually remove the top pane from snowy grass. So snowy grass is actually less laggy now, kind of. Well, it is, but just in a very small scale, so there you go. I've also re-added the chains from Caelesti. As you can see here, these are unchained. They're unchanged from Caelesti. They're the same texture, same model, same variety. Everything is exactly the same except for the file path, which uses the new Caelesti Lite file path system. And as you can see here, we have new lanterns for both the Flame Lantern and the Soul Lantern. I couldn't think of what to call this because it's just called Lantern, so I referred to this as Flame Lantern in the files, and this one as Soul Lantern in the files. There have been a few changes here. Obviously, the most notable change is the fact that the lantern is now a completely different texture. It has a completely different palette, as you can see, which I love the palette for this. I think it looks really hot. And it also has a few new things as well, such as the two-dimensional panes that make up the sidebars of the lantern now. I think it just looks much cooler like that. I think it's a big improvement. And it also has a little top window as well that kind of moves inwards, as you can see there. So basically, it looks like a combination of my own lantern from Caelesti and a brand new lantern, which looks more like the vanilla item texture. Now, speaking of item texture, the item texture has actually been changed to be the actual lantern model. Now, the way that this has been done in my inventory here was actually inspired by Mickey Joe Alpha. I don't know if you guys have seen his pack recently, but his Totem of Undying in that pack is actually a 3D model that has been rotated to look directly forwards and looks like an item texture when it's in the inventory. So my lantern is exactly the same thing. As you can see there, the actual item is a model. It's the same model as the floor model, but with the little handle flipped upwards like that, as you can see. But when it's displayed in the inventory, it's facing directly towards you with the GUI light facing the front, and therefore it just looks like an item texture, which I think looks really cool. Also, in your offhand, as you can see there, it actually looks, not offhand, sorry, in either hand, you can see that it actually has a custom holding position as well. So the display properties have been updated to have an interesting display position. And also, obviously, if I'm wearing it in my head slot, you can see there's a little Easter egg kind of thing there where you become the lantern. Also, the holding position may look a little bit weird on me, for example, but there is a reason for this, and I'm sure a lot of you have already figured it out. If you've watched the recent update of Artibus, you will realize that pillagers now actually hold lanterns at nighttime. So if I do time set 1800, then this guy's going to have a little lantern in his offhand like that, and I think that looks really cool. I think that looks awesome. Look at that. He's got a little lantern. It's so adorable. I love it so much. I love that feature, by the way. Yeah, so once again, credit to Chalk for the idea of pillagers holding lanterns. I think it looks very snazzy. If you guys do want to go and watch any more videos about Artibus, I'll probably put a card in the top corner of the screen right now. You can go and watch update version 04, where we introduced this pillager lantern feature, which I think looks really, really awesome. And once again, if we set it back to daytime, he will put his lantern away. Just like that. Boop. And it's gone. Hell yeah. I love it. I love it so much. Please go download Artibus. It's really cool, and it doesn't get enough attention, and I want money, so go buy it. Thank you. It's free. I was kidding. But yeah, we also have soul lanterns now as well, and as you can see, they are identical in every way, except they are blue. So yeah, I'm also thinking of doing a new Soulfire palette, which is much brighter and whiter, as you can see there. So we'll come back and do Soulfire and also regular fire at some point in the future, for sure. These textures are actually also a lot more efficient now. Instead of having two animated textures for both the regular and soul lantern, we now have a single texture for the casing of the lantern. The top part here, which has the chain, and also the handle on the floor version of the lantern, just uses the chain texture, which is also more efficient, and it also has two separate versions of the model which use the flame and also the soul flame as well. So it's kind of a little bit more efficient in terms of like file paths and file usage as well, which is really cool. It's not really important, but there you go. And once again, as you can see, the floor model does have rotations as well. So when you place it down, the little handle will be flipped over to face one of 4 directions. However, when it's hanging from the ceiling, it now only has 2 directions. We have this one where it's straight on and this one where it's 45 degrees to the side. The reason for that is because of these angled panes that we have in the model now. Unfortunately, if we put this guy 22.5 degrees offset like we had it before, then these kind of like stretched panes on the left and right there really mess up. So it was only a case of we can either have it facing you straight on or 45 degrees to the left or right, as you can see there, which I think it still looks fine. It just means that there is a slightly less variety than there was before, for example. So moving on from that, we also have Mycelium. The Mycelium side texture was really strange in the last update of Caelesti Lite. I really wasn't happy with it at all. Basically, all I did, I realized this afterwards, but all I really did wrong was I just put way too much of this darkest shade of brown for the shading underneath the Mycelium. I put way too much of it in there, and it ended up looking really dumb. So what I did here was when I made the snow, I drastically reduced how much of that shading I was using to highlight the edge of the snow. So I kind of came over to the Mycelium here and then just gave it the same treatment. So I cleared out the dirt texture from underneath, moved it back into the file on paint, and then basically just re-added this dark brown shade, but in a lot less magnitude, as you can see there. And for all of you wondering why I use paint.net, which is basically just free Photoshop that's easier to use, so don't judge me. So yeah, we also have a new variant of the red mushroom texture. I'm still considering changing these to be called button mushrooms because I think that's adorable. But as you can see here, the button mushrooms now have a chance to have an additional small button mushroom next to them. This is also the same as with the brown mushrooms that have a chance to have an additional small mushroom next to them. So these also use the same variants as well. So if you anywhere where you would have a brown mushroom that has a little mushroom, you'll have a red mushroom that has a little mushroom. And I probably just said mushroom quite a few times in such a short amount of time, but there you go. We also have a new texture for the debug stick, as I said before, so this thing's really cool. In an old school version of Skr, we had a custom texture for the debug stick where it was just a wrench, and it was actually taken, the texture itself was actually taken from, I believe it was Applied Energistics 2. It was a slight tweak around and a recoloration of the quartz wrench from Applied Energistics, and I still do really like the shape and the style, so I've gone for that kind of style once again with the wrench, and I think it looks really nice. I think it looks really cute. Again, this is a really simple thing to do. The debug stick in vanilla Minecraft just simply references the same model as the stick, or twig as it's called there. That's a data pack thing, ignore that. But yeah, so basically the debug stick just references the stick texture and model. So now I just simply redirected it to a new custom separate model. And as you can see, it also has the enchantment glint applied there as well. So it does get a little bit of little sparkles as well. Some of you last time said that you really didn't like the flint texture, or said that it didn't look like flint, it just looked like a little rock, and I realized that you were correct. So how did I improve this? What I did is I took the two brightest shades of the flint texture, which would be this shade right here and this shade right here, and I brightened them and made them more contrasty, and I think that way it looks a lot more like flint. I think it looks much better this way. The kind of shape that I was going for with this thing was supposed to be like a flint type texture, like so that you can see that we have this darker side of the texture which is facing away from the light source, and the lighter side of the texture which is facing the light source from the top left hand corner, and it's supposed to look as though it could be a piece of flint, but some of you guys didn't like it, so I've changed it to be a little bit better basically, and I think it looks, I think it does look better now. I think it looks more like flint, but honestly I've just gotten used to this texture now. I really like it, so it's probably not going to change again, and hopefully you guys can get on board with this kind of thing, because I do like this texture. I think it's pretty. But yeah, I've also updated all the arrow textures as well to use the same palette as the new flint, just for the sake of consistency once again. And finally, I've also removed the sea lantern texture as well, because I kind of wasn't really happy with the sea lantern texture. Obviously last time we made a kind of semi-complex model for it, where it had a well, what kind of pattern was it? I guess it was like a 4 window type pattern on the top texture, I guess. And then we had like bars on the side, and basically it looked kind of like a block version of my old school lanterns, which I thought was quite interesting. But anyway, I looked at it quite a lot. I didn't like it for a number of reasons. I didn't like the shape of the model. I didn't like the fact that the model was inconsistent, because it was, again, a slight variance on the regular full 16 by 16 by 16 pixel cube. When it's not that much difference, I don't like that. So I simply, basically, I looked at it too much, and eventually I started to hate it, so I just deleted it. And don't get me wrong, I do still hate the vanilla sea lantern. I think it looks really shit. So I'm going to come back and make a new sea lantern model at some point in the future for sure, and it will use a similar system to what we were using last time. But yeah, I'm kind of undecided on what I want to actually do with it currently, so we'll probably come back to it at some point in the future anyway. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Caelesti Lite. Shorter video today because there are less changes to cover. Hopefully you guys are enjoying Caelesti Lite. I certainly am enjoying making it, very much so. I think it's really good, and there are obviously more changes to the pack today that I've not showcased in this video, such as changes to the quartz block textures and also to the birch log models as well. So if you want to go check those out, you're welcome to go download the pack from my Curse Forge as usual. So yeah, if you're hyped for Caelesti, I am now working on a new update for Caelesti. It's not going to be out for quite some time, but it is now in the works, and I'm also going to be working on Caelesti Lite version 0.4 over the next few weeks, which will introduce the other 3 leaf models as well as maybe some other things as well. I always end up working on small random other things every time I do an update. The whole reason why I did this update was to fix the lighting bugs on the leaves, and then I just ended up doing all of this anyway because I was just working on it as I usually would. So there we go. So yeah, next time we're going to have new leaves for obviously jungle, spruce, and also acacia leaves as well. And yeah, and obviously we'll have some new additional stuff on the sides. That's going to be quite fun. So yes, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, Caelesti Lite version 0.5 is actually going to introduce new features from 1.17, so that's something to hype about as well. So yeah, so hopefully you guys are enjoying. If you are, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Duolingo and Instagram and Facebook. And give me money. Just, I don't know, just send it me in the post. Just put Scalabor's house on the letter, and yeah, that's all you have to do, I think. I don't know. Look how weird you look punching while sprinting. How have I never seen that before? That is really, it's really strange. I don't get it. Anyway, I'm rambling. Goodbye.